Nothing comes easy. You have to work at it. If you're not working at it, you're probably not the best that you can be in that area. So the passion comes once you obtain a certain level of understanding and knowledge, and it's okay if that's not immediate.
Welcome to Beyond the Bar podcast. I'm your host, Anisa Tova, and today I have the absolute pleasure of chatting with Susan Moss. She's many things. She's a powerhouse in the family matrimonial law at a law firm called Shemtop Moss, Foreman and Beta. She has just impressive background from the Wharton School of Business, a law degree from the University of Chicago. She's a fellow of the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, and so many more things. She's a media commentator, true advocate for her clients. Most of all, though, every time I see this lady, she is the life of a party. Susan, welcome to the show.
Wow, if only some of those things were true.
Well, we'll get to the bottom of it.
Absolutely.
So, we've had a pleasure of working together, and we see each other at some of these networking shindigs. But I've really been looking forward to this, to really get to know you and find out who is behind the title. So tell me, what's your story?
So it's interesting. How I became interested in matrimonial law is entirely different than how I became a divorce lawyer. So, how I became interested in matrimonial law. In law school, I spent much of my time representing people who were convicted of killing their abusers. And this all happened in Chicago. And in fact, I was in Oprah on a show all about getting women who were married to abusers off after they had killed their abuser and they were serving time in jail. And we used the battered woman syndrome. And we literally went for a clemency project before the Illinois State Clemency Board. And we were able to get out 4 women who were convicted of killing their abusers out of jail. Now, once we got them out of jail, we had to figure out what's next. So we had to try to figure out a way to reunite them with their children who had either been in foster care or had been, other people had become their guardians. So I became involved in family law, trying to continue the process with my clients. Now that I got them out of jail, I need to get their children back. So that's really how I became interested in matrimonial law, but has no relation to how I ended up in matrimonial law. So I had a professor, and the professor, although I went to law school in Chicago, was from New York. And I realized that she didn't know the real Chicago, going and getting pierogies and going bowling and hanging out in the South Side of Chicago. And I took her all around the South Side of Chicago, eating more greasy food than you could ever imagine and going bowling all night. And at the end of the night, she goes, "You need to work for me." And that's the story. That's how I got stuck. No, I'm just kidding. And I've been doing family law, as we call it, anti-family law, because we take the families and for now more than almost 30 years.
You have this
As a recount, 30 years, that's a lot.
That is a lot. You have this comedic side to you. Let's go back to a younger Susan, like a teenager. I mean, what were you into? Who were you as a teenager?
So I was really into politics, and I still am. And I'm actually the local Democratic district leader. So on the Upper East Side of New York, I represent an area of for the Democratic Party. And I still do a lot of work with candidates, a lot of work with people who want to become judges. and helping them achieve their goals of becoming members of the judiciary. So I spent a lot of time doing work with politicians, and I realized that if it's not fun, it's not worth doing. So from a very early age, whatever I did, I tried to have fun. And it's so interesting because divorce law is very difficult at times, and some of the stories are very heart-wrenching. But you always, the difference between me and other divorce lawyers is I try to find the fun, the joy. The way I look at divorce law is that clients come to me, they're miserable, they're unhappy, they're terrified, and we take them on this journey where I know that, a year or 2 years from the minute they walk into my door, that they're going to be happier. They'll probably be in a new relationship with somebody who's going to, be nice to them, which is usually different than their then spouse, and that life is going to be so much more than it is the day they walk into my office, and that this is just a blip in time on their life, and they're going to have so much more to look forward to once we can get them over this hump.
That's actually, there's so much wisdom in what you said, because there's sometimes these divorces, they drag out for years, and why should it basically, it's like you lose part of your life, and really, regardless of circumstances, unless you are very, very, very ill, why not continue to find joy in other things? And then you have yourself and your children. It's not like you're minimizing the seriousness of it, it's just that you're reminding them what's there and what is now. And that is,
And
yeah.
yeah, what there is to look forward to, because
Yeah.
oftentimes people walk in, it's all bad, everything's bad, nothing is good, and you gotta make sure your clients want to wake up tomorrow, and so, and there's so many, just little fun tricks you can do that, again, doesn't take away from the seriousness or the importance of what we're doing, but has them, they can get their minds off of of the fear or the anxiety. So I'm going to tell you my secrets, but don't tell anybody.
No.
It's just for you and me and
Okay.
whoever's watching the podcast. That's it. That's just for us. So
Promise.
sometimes in a deposition, clients will be so afraid they're going to be deposed, meaning they're going to be asked a series of questions from their spouse's attorney, and they're going to have to give answers, and they're going to be swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Sometimes we play a little game, which is we create a magic word, and every time they say that word in context, you can't just blurt it out. If they say it in context, then they get a point. And if they get 10 points, I give them a prize. So, usually the word is something like elephant, but you can't be like, oh, hi, Mr. Elephant. No, you've got to be like, the elephant in the room is that, you somehow have to work it into context. And that causes people's anxiety to come down. And not to say that they're having fun, but it's a little less horrific than it might otherwise be.
You do not meet or fit, I should say, the stereotype of a lawyer. What do you think is missing in the legal community, sort of for the public to shift their perception about what you do?
It's humanity. You got to show an empathy and humanity. We're all just people. We really are. Divorce lawyers and litigants and the judges and the court staff and the even the court reporter. We're all just people, and we care, and we are compassionate, and we want to listen, and we really do want to help. And so when you can pull back the layers and take off the masks, because oftentimes people will walk into the courtroom and they'll have this persona and they'll be so tough and rough and this, that. And you're like, oh, stop. Let's try to stop problem solve. And if we can't, then we'll do what we need to do. But, putting on a mask really doesn't help anybody. It doesn't, because we're all trying to get to the basis of solving problems.
Yeah, and I can see how you're this breath of fresh air and sometimes maybe mistaken for, she's a goof. I got this. And I see
Yeah,
this, I see power. I see so much
I'm
confidence.
I mean, everyone has sort of their way about them. The for me, I have a level of confidence because of my academic, pedigrees, the Ivy League schools, etc. I have a level of confidence that, there's I feel very comfortable that I am as smart as any other divorce lawyer. So I can take the liberty of joking and smiling and laughing and trying to have a moment of humanity with my opposing counsel and with my client, and in four-way meetings where both attorneys and the both spouses are in a room, where we can really just take off the masks and really just speak to each other. Yeah, sometimes I do laugh, sometimes I do make jokes, but I feel comfortable enough and confident enough in my abilities that I'm not worried that it's going to be misunderstood as incompetence.
Ooh, I love this. What triggers you? What is your pet peeve?
That's a good question. Um, well, one pet peeve is people who lie.
Mm.
You know, you'd be surprised, especially in the matrimonial world. People are not as good liars as they think they are, and they often get caught. They almost always get caught. And so, when I and some of the ways that people have been caught are just so funny. But the reality is if you think you're going to lie, there's a good chance you're going to be caught. And when you are caught, no one will ever trust you again.
Mm. Yeah, that's so true. Simple.
But I am I am really forgiven. I generally forgive all types of. I certainly forgive incompetence, but it's the lying, because that's a choice that they've made.
Mhm.
And there are some attorneys that no one in the bar will ever trust. I mean, there are attorneys that people don't speak to, and everything has to be done in writing, which is bad, because that means everything costs 10
Yeah,
times as much as it should.
yeah.
And it's just not worth it. And when you try to hide money or hide assets, if a court finds that you're hiding assets, they will assume that there's 10 times that the court didn't find. So it
Mm.
always backfires. And so that's just a huge pet peeve of mine.
Mm. What would you do if you couldn't practice law?
Oh, so much. So much. Uh,
Okay.
I I am obsessed with those real estate shows, all of them.
Really?
And so I watch all of them. So I might become a real estate broker. I love sneakers. That's like a little known fact. So I could go into sneaker sales. There are just so many. I do love politics, so that's another option. But probably real estate, and then try to get on one of those shows.
What about the real estate is so appealing to you?
Oh, I love the whole concept of selling a fresh start. I mean, that's kind of what we do too.
Yeah.
Sell a fresh start, a whole new beginning.
Mm.
And so real estate is very similar to that, is that you're taking somebody and trying to listen to what their dream is, and then finding what their dream residence is and getting them in there so that they can have this fresh start and really enjoy the future of where they'll be.
So not so much being involved in the home remodeling or flipping, it's about getting people to their homes.
I will say that. So as a divorce lawyer, I'm not sure I could afford myself. But the only fights I've been married a long time. The only fights we have ever had, and they've been some doozies, all have been with home remodeling. So
Wow.
I no, I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan. There was the tile war of 2018 in my house. This I They've been bad. They've been bad. So my husband and I actually moved about 3 years ago, and we made a promise to each other that no more renovations. This is it. We will live in an outdated home if that's what it takes, because we just can't handle any more renovations.
Okay, now going from renovations to sneakers. Tell me about that. I must know more about that passion.
It all started doo-doo-doo, doo-doo-doo-doo, as a young child in Long Island, where it was the coming of age of the brand new designer sneakers. So
Mm,
there was, Adidas. I guess we started with Puma,
Uma.
and then there was Adidas, and then there was Nike. Funny enough, back in those days, Converse
Yes.
was not a very popular. That's what the common people wore.
Yeah.
And it's funny because many years later, my daughter, for her birthday, wanted a pair of Converse because she thought they were the coolest things she had ever seen. And I'm like,
Yeah.
that's how everyone knew I was poor. What do you, now you want my poor shoes? But
It's
it was such an electric time that the first time I worked a paper route, and I worked some other odd jobs, and babysat, and the first time I could get those cool pair of sneakers, and how excited and proud and I was to wear them, and the whole experience of retail excitement of going into the store and trying them all on. Shout out to Nemo's Sports and Leisure out in Long Island, and going and trying on all the pairs of shoes. I would be there no less than 45 minutes. I'm sure they were going to kill me, but it was fun finally choosing which one. Even though I knew when I walked in which one I wanted, I tried on all of them, and it was just a wonderful experience.
Do you still do that?
Uh, no, no, I
No.
don't. I don't. I usually, because I'm also cheap, so I found some really wonderful outlet stores in Oklahoma, which sells sneakers that I like for half price. We'll put that
We'll put
in the
that in the
comments.
notes. Yeah. That is wow, that's fascinating. Oh my gosh, what do your weekends look like in your household? What do you guys do when you're not working?
I must admit I do work on the weekends.
I do too, so
Um,
there's nothing. Or when you're
so
so when you're not working, what do you enjoy doing?
okay. Um, Everything. So I recently started going to dance classes. I was on Instagram and saw somebody dancing at approximately my age, and I'm like, I can do that too. So I started taking dance class lessons, and I realized very quickly that I'm terrible. But that has not stopped me, nor does it stop me going in the front row of the dance classes. So
Wow.
I go. It's held around the Broadway area, and you walk into one of these dance studios, and it's every Broadway training, all the new shows that are going to come on, and it's all the
Wow.
wonderful dancers and singers, and we all walk in the front door, and we all have our gear on, and they go into their rooms, which clearly is not my dance room, and then I go into one, and we just have a lot of fun dancing to 80s music,
Yeah.
and I'm terrible, But it's just a lot of fun.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it. I used to take a swing dance lessons, the West Coast swing, East Coast swing back in Denver, and it was like a community center and so much fun.
Oh, it's
Movement,
so
right?
much fun.
Get stuff out of
Movement,
you. Yeah.
it's the 80s music.
Yeah.
It's the, wanting to pass out. But it's also the joy of finishing and walking out with all the Broadway starlets, and we're all sweating and we look like hell. And they've done something masterful, and I, danced to George Michael.
Oh no, you didn't. My gosh,
Oh
one of my
yes.
heroes.
Jitterbug.
Oh yeah, Wham, right? Yep.
Yes.
Oh my, yeah, as a matter of fact, I was at a AML holiday event last night, and they started before one of the speakers started speaking, they were playing his Christmas song. And I'm like, okay, everybody quiet, please. George
Yeah.
Michael. Yeah, my gosh.
Oh, he's the best. It's
Yeah.
just terrific.
Wow. Now,
Huge.
does your husband come with you, or is it just your time?
So it's so funny. So I go to a lot of conventions for the International Academy of Family Lawyers and the American Academy of Family Lawyers, and anyone else who will have a conference. And for a long time, my husband didn't come, and he recently started to come. And I guess I talk about him so much that the first conference he went to, he gets out of the cab, and all these people are coming and hugging him and saying hello because they know him. They know everything about him. They know all of his hobbies. They know everything there is to know about my husband. Yet he doesn't know who these people are. And they're all hugging and kissing him. And he's like, hey, because he doesn't know their names. He doesn't know. It was just, so he has now started to come, and it's a lot of fun.
Does he join you for dance lessons too?
He does not. He does not. At first he was concerned that I was dancing with other people, and then he saw the group and he's like, "Oh, you go get them. It's me and my equally untalented dancing friends."
Oh my God, this is too funny. You know, what advice would you give to incoming lawyers?
Be be available to whatever opportunities are put in front of you. So if you're like, I want to be a criminal lawyer, that's what I want to do, that's what I want to do, but you meet a mentor who does something else like tax, you know, don't be concerned to switch your dreams. When opportunities are before you, don't be afraid to just grab at them, even if they weren't your original dream, because dreams change, and that's okay. The most important part as a young lawyer to get ahead is to find somebody to learn from, whether that be to mimic their style or the way they handle themselves, or to learn how they put together motion practice or do trials. If you meet somebody who you think you can learn from and they can be a mentor and a role model, that's where you need to go, even if it wasn't what your original vision of your legal career was going to be.
Hmm. Just follow the path. Do not
that
second
that
yourself.
sort of
Yeah.
is before you.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I've had interesting discussions with people who are successful. They build business success, and there is the talk about, do you really need to have passion? Well, passion is not something you acquire, but I think honing a certain craft, so you have that knack and you follow it, and then you get into that field, and then you do the best you can to become all you can be in that field, I think builds passion as you become good at what you do and you find
That's right.
fulfillment, whatever it is.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a
But
yeah.
work is work,
Yeah.
it's hard. You need to hone your craft, to learn how to do any sort of law, to learn how to do anything in any field. You really have to put in the hours. You really have to put in the sweat, sometimes the tears. It's very difficult.
Mhm.
And don't, you know, nothing comes easy. Nothing comes easy. You have to work at it. If you're not working at it, you're probably not the best that you can be in that area. So the passion comes once you obtain a certain level of understanding and knowledge. And it's okay if that's not immediate.
Yes. Right. That is so true. And maintain a good sense of humor along the
You have to. You have to. And because if you don't, you know, I remember as a child, not a child, as a summer worker, commuting on the Long Island Railroad from my home in Oceanside. And every day on the train, somebody was crying.
Mhm.
Somebody for something that happened in work, somebody was crying. And New York is a tough town. It's a tough town. You gotta go with the flow. You have to have a good sense of humor. You can't take everything so seriously because it's a rough and tumble place that we have all chose to be in. And to be successful, you have to ride the waves. It's like when you're roller skating, or when you're skiing, the most important thing is to keep your legs too tight, to
Yes.
keep them a little bent and a little, so that when you go over the bump, you just take that shock and keep on going. Well,
Yeah.
law or any career is the same way. There are going to be bumps. Absolutely. I don't care who you are. I don't care what field you're in. There are going to be bumps. And if you know, keep your legs bent and ready to absorb those shocks, you'll keep on going, and you'll eventually get to where you are supposed to be.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and your smile, your sense of humor. This has been such a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely, anytime.
Oh yeah, I'll take you up on that for sure. Wow, and to our listeners and viewers, make sure you check out the links below to learn more about Susan Moss, her work, and how to get a hold of her. And don't forget to subscribe to our Beyond the Bar podcast channel for more great conversations. And until next time, stay curious and stay inspired.
Filter.